Alan, can you, yeah, you can hear now? Everybody can hear me? Great, thank you. Just a few more things that we wanted to deal with. Carla's good. Hold on, somebody's texting me to try to get into the meeting, I think. One matter of administration, if you would like tonight, we will be meeting with the board. The board meeting is from 7 to 7:30 our time, right? So it is 1:30 right now for your reference point. So that will be from 7 to 7:30. And if you'd like to come on, again, I might ask one or two of you who've been working with MINTS what you would like to do. I recognize the African guys are going to be way past their bedtimes. So, it's unfortunate. One thing that I'm hoping to do maybe at some point, well, we'll talk about what we're going to do in Africa a little bit later, but I'd like to get back to doing quarterly Zoom meetings with all of the country coordinators. And then maybe actually doing some one-on-one stuff with some of the guys who would like to do some one-on-one sort of theological development. I'd like to do that, very much like to do that with some of the guys, and I would encourage the rest of you in Asia to try and do the same, and in other places. One of the things that I wanted to cover is the whole issue of registration. We had a lot of stress last year with COVID, and then getting grades together, and we had some big registration issues. So just here are some things that Shelley and I sat down and talked about. Firstly, a reminder, please, if you're working with groups anywhere, please, and I'm just looking at who we've got on the line, but this is a general thing. Alfred, this might apply to you guys in Sierra Leone. But we need our students registered by the 5th course, right? Students, please register by the fifth course. So please do that. It makes life a lot easier for us. We don't want to get into the situation where we did in the past, where guys were then registering and graduating. We don't want that for two reasons. One is we don't want the crush at the end. We had to, at one stage, we had to process over 90 documents in about 3 weeks, and we couldn't do it. We just couldn't do it. And then, oh, we're not going to graduate, and the graduation date gets pushed back and things like that. So please remember, we are asking for 12 weeks or 12 weeks prior to graduation. We need your documents to start flowing in, right? And we need full sets of complete documents. It's a long time, but it comes to us, we check them. That's myself and Shelley, and Shelley does all the work. Then I just check over her shoulder, see if anything jumps out at me. Then it goes up to Eric, and then Eric needs to say yes when he can, and then we need to mail the degrees. So we do need a 12-week clear statement. And one of the ways that can help us tremendously is if we have that 12 weeks, then if you're registered, it just takes half of the equation out, right? We just don't want to do that. The other reason for doing that and wanting us to be registered by the 5th course is it helps us if we're dealing with numbers, right? We never quite know what's going on. If groups, we might say, well, let me give you, for instance, I mean, we've got potential groups in Malawi, not Malawi, we've got potential groups in Addis Ababa. They are not on our records. Officially, those records that you saw this morning where we list everything and we list the number of students, if you are not registered, you are not classified as a student official. And we've had reports in the past, and we even had reports this last meeting where guys were saying, hey, we've got this many students in this country. Well, no, you haven't, not as far as I'm concerned, because none of them are registered. So just trying to force that issue to make sure that people register and it doesn't hurt us. We are ahead of the Spanish side on that. The Spanish side have not been as good, and therefore it's difficult to get an idea of their numbers, right? So register, please. We're moving forwards, and we're doing that. Let me see. One of the things that Shelley's asked to make it easier, and again, I'm just looking at who's on this thing. Isaac's on this call, Jack's on the call, but Melvin, this would apply to the stuff in Banner 2 that you guys are doing. And also it would apply to Carla to some degree. And if Alfred and you guys are coming in, one of the things, I mean, Isaac has been wonderful to give us quarterly updates on grades. We don't absolutely need it, but it would be really helpful if we had it, right? If quarterly doesn't work for you, 6 monthly. But just to take the sting out of the end of the year crisis when you need to graduate, and we don't need to be struggling over that. So just from the records, I'm going through Shelley's notes, and she said one of the things that Isaac's been great at doing is giving in quarterly grades, and that makes it a breeze when he starts asking for things, because we've already looked at them, we've already seen them, we've already processed them. So if you can move stuff up, it makes it easier for us. So that's one of the things. Let me see. One of the things we did last year, and I didn't ask for it this year, but I sort of did and sort of didn't, right? So I sent you the numbers. It was a spreadsheet with the numbers of the centers we have in each country and the number of students. And please check that against records that you guys have, because that's a way that we can catch if there's any problems, right? So if there's any weird anomaly, this center is not recorded, this center doesn't have this center doesn't have the next thing, hey, we can catch that early, or we'd rather catch the problems earlier than later, all right? Let me see. Those were some of the major things from Shelley, and I've got a list of other things. You know, we are going to try to do online registrations. Now, let me explain to you how the process works at the moment. And we tried to get a database running before, and we didn't get it off the ground. So that project with Dave has been shelved, you know, right now. But here's what we're trying to do at the moment, and I think this is a much simpler way of doing it, and I think it's incremental, and I think we'll get there. Our database, which is the back end where we create your transcripts, right? Our database at the back end is done by Larry Riddell. And what we did in the past was we sent out the database to all of the groups. And so there'd be one for Sierra Leone, there'd be one for Kenya, there'd be one for somewhere else, right? So we did it that particular way, and then they would then send back information for us. Sometimes they'd generate transcripts. That was complicated, it was messy, so we left that alone, and we basically got you guys to send in written transcripts with the 5 categories, right? We discussed this morning, so that all as a student would have the 5 categories, the grades, they would be sent in. Now, that means that you have to do it on some sort of spreadsheet, and then it has to be redone by another spreadsheet with Shelley, who then enters it into the database. So it was really cumbersome and really, really bad, right? So what we asked Larry to do was we said to Larry, would you be prepared to do an online form, which only the national coordinators can do for registration? Now, I'm going to just show you very briefly on the screen. I'm going to show you, the form is hidden. You're not going to find it because we're not making it public. I'm simply showing it to you for your information, all right? So, let me put it up from my my older emails. Now, of course, it won't come, of course. There's another way of doing it. Right, let me show you this particular form. So I need to share my screen right now. And this is just for information. We're not actually going to do anything with it. But it is showing you how we're thinking. Can you see my screen? Everybody should be able to see my screen right now. Yeah. Okay, excellent. So this form is going to live. Now we're going to change the form because we're not going to use this particular form. We're going to change the actual question on it, but this is the standard MINTS form, right? And if I go in and I start typing my name and my details, I hit start filling and I start boom, boom, putting all of this in. If I put my name and my details in, it will start the process of registering the student. You go through the whole form and it creates a really nice little form at the end of it, which automatically gets emailed to the person who will then be moving it straight from there into the database, checking it and moving it into the database. So we're thinking that we only need one database in one location, and we can do, so you've got last name, first name, preferred name. We're going to go through this list and cut things out and add things to this list of what we want and what we don't want. Okay. So basically it's just a standard form. You fill it in just like you do any online form. It will generate a report and it will generate, and it's the same. This is based on our current application system. As I said, we'll be changing it. And this is the way, and I'd like some feedback on that from people. This is the way I think this is the most sensible way for us to go forward. So instead of registering new students with the old way where you would get it, you'd make the transcript, you'd put it into Dropbox, you'd move it across to Shelley and all the rest of it, only country coordinators will lock everybody else out, but only country coordinators will be able to go in and use this system to register a student anywhere in the world, right? They go in, they register the student, and then that student will then enter into our database and be put through our system, into our system. And it takes a whole lot of steps out for us. We still have, Shelley still has to look at it, or I still have to look at it to make sure that the sheet is correct, that the right information is in there. And it will still include, for example, you have to upload PDFs into it, right? You know, we're still going to have your recommendation. We're still going to have your testimony and stuff like that in there. So the PDFs have to be loaded up into this form. But the whole idea is it'll simplify and take out some steps on the back end for us. So this is the first thing I want to bring up, and I'd like to hear what anybody has to think about this, or anybody wants to say about it. It seems to be a really simple system. It doesn't take a lot of bandwidth, and this is the way we're slowly going to move over, I hope maybe in the next few months even, to registering new students, just new students, not existing students, just new students. Anybody got any thoughts on that, or want to, you know, discuss or anything of that nature?
I would like to add a comment.
Please do, Alan.
I see zip code. Some countries call it postal code. I see last name. Some countries put the last name first. Maybe family name could be after a slash. I don't know if that's part of your thinking, but it looks quite North American right now.
And that's because it's based on our old, our old questionnaire, right? So part of that, we'll be getting rid of zip codes. We'll be getting rid of a whole host of things to make it more generic and international, rather than just yeah. It's right now all our forms are North American forms. We want to get rid of that.
In addition to that, the street address field, some countries don't have street addresses. They have descriptions of where the place is, but it can be 2 sentences long. Okay,
well, we'll bear that one in mind. So what we'll do, and this is how we're going to do it, the list of fields that we are going to ask for is going to go to the AEC. We will look at the list of field in the AEC. Your sort of comments and other comments will be incorporated into it. Then we send it back to Larry Riddell. Larry will redesign this, and then by token, we will also end up redesigning the forms, right? Because this was based on the forms. We're still going to have the forms because some people might not be able to do this, but they should be able to do it. So does that address the issue that you had with that, Alan?
Yes.
Yeah, we know that it's a problem, and we're trying to figure out a simpler way to do it.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. We have last name, first name. But in some places where I'm at, they only go by one name.
Right.
I know one student.
Norland, you're muted.
Sorry, you're muted. You're muted.
Not to us, he's not.
Oh, rest of you can hear me.
Yeah.
One of the students tried to fill out his form. His name was Solomon, and so we put Saul as his first name, and then O as a middle name, and Mon as his last name. You're gonna get stuff like that.
And that's what we're going to have to catch it, because what we'll do is we will combine what we've done for names is your national identity. Okay.
Mhm.
You give me a paper with your national identity, and if you can't, give me any paper with a name on it, because otherwise we've had the problem in the past where guys are saying, my name is so-and-so, but I want to be called Bob. And then we've got a degree that we have to issue to Bob. And then if we don't issue it to Bob, then we want to, you know what I mean? It's so we just said,
Julian?
forget it. Give me your legal name. And one of the documents that you have to hand in is a copy of your driver's license or passport or national identity. Just a document that's going to give that. And
English, is that what you're?
What?
well, okay, that's another, you know, now we're on to another thing, you know, and if we get to that, we're going to have to work on that. Thanks for giving us more problems. That's fair enough. Fair
Really?
enough. But then, Jack, does that look like what you see might work in Africa from your interactions?
Yeah, no, it should work fine. I think you know.
Hold on.
one-
I gotta manipulate the. I gotta. Right, Jack. Say again.
No, I was just saying if one person controls that, the coordinator, and that goes to you know, Shelley, that it should work fine. Just a bit of fine tuning, but Jotform is a good platform.
Right. So that's exactly it. We're going to do it. Look, right now it just exists in no man's land because it's a proof of concept thing, which we're playing with. We know that it works. We know that we can make it work. And then what ideally I'd like to do is it'll be linked to the website. So you can get into you'll get it into the website. You'll have a sign in, right? So Jack, you'll use your jackmartin@mints.edu. You'll sign in with your password. And that way I know that the country coordinator is doing, because we're going to have to link you to a study center, and we're going to have to link some things like that, right? We don't want these going to different study centers and all the rest. We want them in the right study centers. So only the coordinators will come in, you'll log in, and we'll do it on that way. That's how we can exercise control, so that, I mean, we're not going to give this to every student who wants to apply, right? Because you know what will happen.
Julian.
Yeah.
One idea that Birmingham Seminary does is on their application, they have a place that says your name, how you want it to, exactly how you want it to appear on your diploma. So they have, first name, last name, but then they have what's supposed to go on your diploma right on there.
Well, the problem that we've had with that is, and again, I mean, Colin, that's fine. The problem that we've had with that is that then it gets onto legal names, and then, oh, wait a minute, I wanted Bob on mine, but now I want, Robert, because it's not a legal document anymore, and students, you know what I mean? So we
got to find that. Well, maybe say the legal name that you want, that you need or something.
Well, that's why we go by the identity document. We just decided, and that's what we're running with now. We run with the identity document. It was too painful and it was too messy. So, and there's no redo.
Okay.
Right?
That's good.
But thanks, Carla.
Okay.
Any
That's good
other
to know.
observations or suggestions?
But Julian,
Yes.
let me deal with echoes here a minute. There. Okay.
Or maybe not. Just mute your sound, but don't mute your microphone.
Yeah.
Yell that parrot. Yell that parrot.
How is that?
No, well, just try.
How about now?
Better.
Better.
No.
Yes.
How about now?
Yes.
Hang
I'll ask-
on. I'm yeah. Okay, go ahead. Just go. We'll figure it out.
Okay, it's just a quick question. Can a person get a hard copy off of this jot form?
What well, yes, in that it will create a PDF of once you've done the job form, it will create a PDF, and so that that should be, you'll get a product. You won't get the form, but you'll get a product. Does that make sense? If you want to do it, and we'll discuss this, because let's say you do want to run it offline. Well, you'll be able to print this off. We'll figure out a way that you can print it off offline and do it. But then somebody's going to have to actually be online and put it on for the form.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks. In fact, let me see if I can find you the. Let me see. Anyway, I was trying to. I can't find. Yeah, right. So I can't find you. Just quickly, I couldn't find you the finished form that. Let me see. I might be able to find you. It's actually not a form that you ever will see. It's the form that Eric wants us to see. So when you send all this information in, we take that and we create a top copy from that, which Eric wants a one-page top copy. And that's the document that gets filed above every form that people use, right? And so that's what, we're working with Eric, that will automatically create that top copy form straight away. Now, so this would be phase one. Phase one. So phase one is we send this out. Is that my side or is it somebody else? Yeah, no, I think it's my side. So phase one is this. If we get this running smoothly, phase two was we'll be able to link the grades with the person and update them every quarterly or every 6 months.
Yeah.
Right.
That's one of my questions. How will a country coordinator find another student's grade?
And that's going to be, and that's Larry's job to be able to do it.
So there will be a list of students.
We'll figure out that'll be Larry's. That's going to be Larry's job. But in concept, he said he can do it, right? So, and he's running the database at the moment. So it'll be the same sort of pick lists that he's running off the database will somehow interact, right? So, in theory, you should be able to do the grades at the same time in the same way, and then finally, we can then generate the transcripts from that. When we want to do it on our end, we're still going to have to mail it out to everybody. That's that, because we need to keep the seal with Eric or Jose, who's slowly taking over from Eric, right? So the document only has validity when it's sealed and it's one of our documents, and so that's what it is. So that's the broad plan, but we're not going to create what I mean? We're not going to bite off something which is a huge master thing. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're just going to do it incremental, right? And in theory, the great thing is, instead of having, because in the Spanish side, for example, they've got databases all throughout South America that they send information from. We don't have that in the English side, because particularly with Africa, it was difficult getting us getting the information out or emailing stuff. And the databases were getting corrupted in parts of Africa because it's an access database, and computers were getting corrupted with viruses. But the idea then is we'll just have one master on a server. And that also helps us if we need to find students and all the rest of it. So, Larry's prepared to help with that. We're grateful for Larry. And this is just round one. Okay, so even if we only go this far, it takes at least 2 steps out of Shelley's thing, right? And that saves her time, because she's under the gun, and we need to do everything we can to streamline and simplify the process. Okay. just again, reiterating this idea of who is a student. And I know everybody on this call, I wish some of the people from yesterday, remember when we're talking about students, we are talking about registered students, okay? If like, for example, we've got stuff going to happen in Addis Ababa, centers there, as far as I'm concerned, until those students are registered and properly registered using our registration system, they're nothing. I don't mean that in a bad way, but we're not adding them in, okay? We're trying to be more disciplined with our reports, and we are a lot more disciplined with our reports. In the past, we had people throwing around ridiculous student numbers, and then we had to go and find out, and we found out that they weren't what they were. And it wasn't that they were trying to, do strange things or whatever. It was just ill discipline in the way that they reported students, and they were enthusiastic. And so for us, students are going to be that. A couple of other things that we're doing, and I really want to encourage everybody to see about helping with these things. Let me stop the screen share for a second. Right. So a couple of other things that we're doing that I want you to think about and how you could leverage these. We're doing video, and I need to talk to Alan. I'll do it now, but I've just done 3 or 4 videos. In fact, Jack, could you get us to that website and put the link in the chat, and then I'll bring it up, the website that we do for the videos. So what happens is I've been on getting up early in the morning, and I've been lecturing into Cameroon, and they asked me to lecture on the doctrine of the Holy Spirit, because obviously it was contentious and all the rest of it. And they said, rather than us studying that locally, we'd rather bring in somebody because it's a difficult doctrine for us. And so we do that. So we did that, and then we've just been recording as we go along. Then what happens is, once I'm finished doing it, I process it, put it into a transfer. This is very unwieldy, and Jack and I'll talk about it later, because it puts Jack on the spot. Jack has to do it all, and we probably need to simplify the process where I can just do it myself. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, Jack and I'll talk about it. But so Jack, then
Or you can just pay me. Jack.
That's not going to happen.
Speaking of recording, did you start the recording again?
Did I? Yes, we are
Yes,
recording.
it's on.
We are recording.
Okay, I just didn't answer that.
So Jack, can you pop that into the chat? Otherwise, otherwise I'll share the. Let me take you.
Yeah, it's in the chat.
Excellent. I'm gonna open that up, and then I'm gonna share screen again. And look, we're not refining any of this. This is just, in fact, we just throw it all up, and that's all we do.
It's just the Zoom recording that is nothing edited, and yeah.
Yeah, so it's simple. So let me go to, let me just give you an example, but let me share the screen. Let me do share screen again. Let me go on to this. Is that, no, I don't want that one. I want this one. Okay. And this is what we've got for some of our videos that we've thrown up. Now, the ones that you see here on the videos most recently, I did that one in Cameroon, Holy Spirit. We've got hermeneutics that I did in Zambia. Cameroon was the other. We've got Greek classes that were recorded and then sent through. And again, this is not finessed or anything like that. It's just stuck up and put up. So if students want to go and re-listen to the lectures or something of that nature, and I really would encourage you, if you are doing sort of lectures like this and you're lecturing off your course, record it. It'll be recorded not onto the cloud, but onto your hard drive, rename it on your hard drive, and then, open up a transfer file. That's what I did with Jack. So I have a transfer file with Jack. I upload it into the transfer file. Jack grabs it on the other end and puts it up onto the website. So, so that's a real simple, straightforward way of doing it. And it just adds some stuff, right? It adds stuff to what we've got. We're not trying to make it perfect, but it's just available. Any comments on it? I know that, Alan, you were recording into Zambia, and I think you were doing what, ancient church? I can't remember what you were doing most recently. Let me get rid of this.
It was ancient church, yes.
Right. So did you record them?
I haven't checked whether the last one worked, but yeah, I tried. Yeah.
Okay. And then literally just get in there, rename them once it, throws it up on the screen. Zoom throws it up on the screen. And I don't see
What I want to add, Julian, sorry for interrupting, is you can have the video, but what you can also do is you can extract the audio. I think Zoom does that for you. So say, for instance, you are, let's take Africa, for instance, people don't have the bandwidth to watch the entire 2 or 3 hours. It takes a lot of data. So you can extract the audio and kind of have like a podcast idea thing, or just the audio file, which is much smaller. Or YouTube also has a great function where you can extract the transcript. So if everybody is speaking clear English, it does actually quite a nice job of extracting the actual text, and that can also be sent to people. If it needs a bit of work, but if that is another option. So there are a few options to the actual centers to get the information across.
Thanks. I think with the transcript, it's interesting because it might work in some limited sense, but in the main, the transcript is, our courses are our transcript, right? So, and they should be finished product. But that idea of just having audio, you know what? I think from now on, I'm going to see if that's what's on offer and just do the audio across like that, because I think that's really, really, really useful.
When you save the Zoom recording, it saves the video file with the sound, and it also saves a separate audio only file. So you don't have to do anything. It gives you the option. So you've got both. So you can just use the audio, or you can use the video as it is.
Let me see. I'm just going to, for people who might be interested. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, so I'm going to share screen again. And I want that screen. Right, can you see that? That should be the Zoom link on your screen. Can you see it? Are you seeing the folders there that's in front of you? Can you see a folder?
Yes.
Right. So one of those, I'm sorry, man, I'm getting old. I can't see. Yeah, the second one down says audio.
Yep.
And it's only 85 megabytes, where the MPEG-4 movie is 529 megabytes. So you know what, Jack? Let's do that. I don't think there's much. There's the way we're doing these things. It's a lot simpler just to move the audio.
I really don't. I actually like the video being there as well, just for the fact that people might like to see the interactions, and many times a person might have a presentation or something that they're showing, but I would have. I think we can do both. So. I know this kind of like leads to training again and technical stuff, but you can listen to only the audio on YouTube as well. But maybe, you can, what I usually do or have done in the past is I upload the YouTube file, and then I upload it, the audio, to something like SoundCloud or something like that. And I just put the SoundCloud link in the comments or in the description of the YouTube video, and I just say, if anybody wants to only listen to the audio, just click here, and it automatically opens it like that. So but that's extra work. It's just for option, for another option, if anybody only wants the audio.
Yeah, sometimes I think that when we look, in years gone by, this minister that I was with used to go street preaching, and he'd stand on the corner next to the betting shop in England and the market, and he'd street preach, and people would walk by. You know when they wouldn't walk by? When people were having an argument, right? As soon as somebody got up there and wanted to debate with him, man, everybody would stand around. And actually, that was the time when people started to listen. They were listening to the argument, they were listening to the debate. And so there's actually a lot of value in having real interaction. And that's what makes it different from just a monologue or a presentation. And so I think that I do think that this is actually quite useful. And if nothing else, if a student has missed it, he goes back, he picks it up. And so bear that in mind, all right? And I think, I mean, Alan's done, you know, we're still going to go back. Alan, Nathan Buckman is still doing videos for the main site. So we still want you, please, to go down to Nathan Buckman and spend, a week doing the ancient church history. Well, I know you've done that already, but your own courses, right? We're trying to get more of that onto the main website. But, and anybody who's done courses, we actually would like you, Stan, I'm looking on, Stan, Norland's done a course. We'd like you to do the video. We'd like you to be down and actually do the thing down in Lakeland, and we can help set that up. I'm also looking at a second studio in Houston. Somebody's put me on to a second studio that somebody runs in Houston. So that's another option. And it might be easier for some people just to fly to Houston and then say, okay, I'm going to spend 3 days or 4 days, and I'll allocate 3 or 4 days to look after you. And you're going to go down there and you're going to give your lectures. I think that it does add something. And as time goes by, our YouTube channel will look better and better, and we'll be adding more and more things to it. So
I guess I'd just like to see or to hear more of the pedagogical reasons for putting these videos up. How does this fit with the MINTS goals?
Well, a couple of ways. Well, let's do it in reverse. The way that it doesn't fit with the MINTS goals is that we are trying to train people who are going to train people.
Right.
And there's the danger of dependency, right? We do not want that. I mean, that's the danger of these videos, right? The flip side is, one, advertising. It doesn't hurt to have our stuff up there, right? Two, if it's been done, I know that we've also taken the videos online with the prison ministries. They've created DVDs, they've taken them into the prisons, and they've done it that way as well. And it's just another way of getting information. It's not the way of getting information. It's just another way of getting
Educationally, it adds another, what we call scaffolding. It adds another, the message is coming in through different senses. So it helps having video, audio, and reading supports English language learners who are having difficulty.
I've been actually quite surprised at when I was stuck in England and when we've had COVID and stuff like that, everything's on YouTube, right? Your radiator in your house in England breaks, go to YouTube to fix it. The car won't run, go to YouTube to fix it. And I've actually been I've been surprised at how much I have gravitated to video learning when I never ever thought I would. And that's just personal. I'm not suggesting it for the whole world. I'm just saying, I'm actually surprised at how much there was something I wanted to get to the bottom of, which was quite complicated. And I thought, you know what, I can read it, but I'm just going to listen to it. And actually, so I was surprised at myself, because I've always worked from paper. And at the end of the day, all theology is done on printed paper. That's the bottom line, right? It has to be like that. If you're doing
it hits a different part of your brain. So you've got.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I was just recognizing that. Yeah.
That's why it works. That's why it's helpful.
I can't unmute, so hopefully you can hear me. I guess I agree with Julian in that the danger is that these videos somehow replace local lecturers, and we don't want to have that happen. I know in India, if there would be a choice between a video from someone from a Western country and a local pastor lecturing, they'd go with a video every time.
Yeah.
And we need to be very careful about that doesn't happen, because what we're really about is training those local lecturers to train others.
To just reinforce that, I was at a church on Sunday, and they haven't got a minister. They do adult Sunday school. And there's a guy there who's interested in MINTS, and he's actually interested in MINTS in prison. And he's very able and all the rest of it. And we were I was talking to the session, or some members of the session, and they said, oh yeah, we're doing, I won't tell you who did it because it's going to sound detrimental. It's not meant to, but we're doing Pilgrim's Progress, and we're doing it by this very well-known lecturer / professor. And that's what we're going to be studying for the next 8 weeks or something like that. Now, the alternative was for me to say to this guy, why don't you teach a MINTS course with them and all work together on the MINTS course? So you learn how to grow in your teaching ability. They learn how to be shepherds and help you, and everybody's moving together. And out of those two, personally, I prefer the latter, right? And it wasn't about MINTS versus that. It was more about the educational. I'd rather you guys got stretched. Now, look, there are some places where you go listen to the experts and you say, thank you very much, and you walk away, right? I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. But the danger was, one is a passive way of learning, and we just sit and we take and we don't grow. Or we say, if you do this, you will, and you won't grow. And part of that discussion was, I was talking to one of the guys about his children. He lives on a farm. He's actually a computer guy, a very, very capable computer guy, but he lives out on a farm. And we were saying, look, the analogy is bringing up your kids, right? You bring up your kids. You could do everything faster than they do at a certain age, and you can do it more, and you can do it. But if you keep doing that, they'll never get anywhere, right? They'll never get anywhere. And in the long run, we were just joking about it, and he said, yeah, they just put up, what did he say? He said they just put up 2,000 yards of wooden fence all around our property. It was a lot more than 2,000. It was a huge amount of fencing all around the property. He said they did it all themselves. I didn't even have to. I just asked them to do it, gave them the parameters of what I wanted to do, gave them a budget, and off they went and they did it. And he said, so that's just the analogy. We understand that. I think we're all on the same page there, right? But just to go back to what I said, I was actually quite surprised, I was surprised myself when I went, you know what, actually, listening to these videos, you know what, that's not a bad way for me personally to consume, which did actually surprise me somewhat.
It could be a both and,
Yeah,
sometimes
it's not a one or the other, but
yeah,
first
that's what we
point,
try for.
yeah, the first point is so long as it doesn't stop us developing teachers.
Right.
I think what we've been seeing now with COVID is obviously everybody was forced into Zoom. I wish I had a few shares in Zoom before the pandemic, but the whole concept of hybrid learning, I think everybody has now seen the power that this platform has, and now bringing the education back to ministry. Obviously, now it's the big challenges where I agree with Nolan is ministry and the computer doesn't work well for me, so I really like to be with people and experience almost in a pastoral sense. But educationally, I mean, the advantages we have in reaching people that we otherwise couldn't, or reinforcing extra information, just allowing people to revisit and reinforce it. It really does help, but it is a balance. You can't replace the one with the other. So I think the idea of using strengths of both and combining them is actually where finding that middle ground is, I think, the goal, or should be the goal.
Yep. And I think you hit on something, the idea of modeling is kind of hinted in there.
Yeah.
If they see some videos where you're modeling how to have interaction with students, because for most of our students in many countries, they've only seen classes as being direct, very passive. So if they see you interacting with the crowd on Zoom, interacting with your group, and that back and forth give and take, it's a good way to model for them how they should be with their students.
Right. I mean, you know, of the various ways of communication, I like preaching less than I like teaching. And the reason for it is I prefer the cut and thrust of teaching than the monologue of preaching. I just do. And so that's on a personal note.
Blasphemy.
Blasphemy. I know.
There's a place for both.
Yeah, no, it wasn't an either or. It wasn't an either or, but it's very interesting. If you do a study of preaching and teaching in the New Testament, they are almost sui juris. They're almost the same. And I did that study one day. Okay, so that's the other thing. I think it's just a couple of other things just to get people's, really for this group, those are most of the things that I wanted to touch. The DMIN is causing us difficulties. We've already talked about that. We are trying to put a protocol together, and I will be sending that out to Alan and to others. I think that over the next year, and I've started to discuss this with Norland, but we just had general discussions about stuff. One of the things that we want to do is make our catalog and things like that robust, not robust in that we cover every eventuality, because that's not the way. But if we have robust written documents that we refer to people and say, this is how we run things, we've got gaps in them at the moment that we need to sort out, then we can give people absolute freedom out, you know, to say, these are the constraints. Now make MINTS work in the area that you do it, so long as you don't get outside of these constraints. And I think we're going to do it through written documents and things like that. Get our written documents robust. And then it's just, hey, you want to do MINTS in Vanuatu, or you want to do MINTS in wherever you are. We've got Alfred on the line. You want to do MINTS in Sierra Leone. Well, hey, these are our written documents that explain how we actually work. And we expect you to be, you know, to be grown up enough to grab the documents, to read the documents, to understand how we work, and then to go ahead and do it. Now, we are always available to help, and we were not saying it's one or the other. But let me just give you a for instance of one of the more interesting ways that MINTS has grown. One of our largest centers in Africa is Malawi. And the way that grew was we had one guy come on and do the DMIN. He got interested while he was doing the DMIN, downloaded the documents that were up on the website, which was how to run a MINTS center. They went through them line by line. They know them better than I do. They went through them line by line, said, we like this philosophy of education, this works, and started doing MINTS centers. And we get emails. We got emails from this group in Malawi saying, will you come down and see us? Will you come down and see us? And yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, eventually, after about 5 years, the persistent widow prevailed, and Jeff Gordon said, yeah, I'll go down. We get down there, and it's like, these guys are running the whole show. And that's an example of what, you know, it's an example of how you give the people the tools, and off they go, and they can run with them. And so that's what we're hoping to do. We're hoping to work through a number of things that we can see on our documents, and we're going to be very careful about it over the next year. Try and make them as clean and as robust as possible without nitpicking and all that sort of stuff. Give the real clear guidance, and then from there, and then we can give more freedom at one level to people, so long as they're operating within the documents. And that's the only way we can handle the growth, to be quite honest with you. I mean, Norland's exploded this year. Well, I mean, Norland, he's exploded, but he's got half the world's population under his jurisdiction, you know what I mean? Or at least a quarter of the world, right? Norland's, dealing with, a quarter of the world's jurisdiction. So yeah, it's exploded. How are you going to manage that? Well, the only way I think is by having these robust constitutional documents, and then saying, we are going to give you the freedom to work within them. And then we go back to, hey, we're going to audit you. We'll come back to that. We're going to audit you from time to time. And I've got some suggestions on audits that I'm just going to throw out, get your feedback, and do things in that way. So just heads up with that, that sort of approach. Any comments on that, Nolan?
No, And we'll keep working as we can. You know?
Yeah, so, you know, we've got a number of things. We meet quarterly for the AIC meetings or the AEC meetings. And so, you know, these things are on our docket. We're trying to think them through. And we'd love also to get in touch with some of you at a committee level, right? We've talked about that. We need a committee. And who's the best writers that we know? Well, we'll get hold of those people and put them into the committee. They feed back and try and do it that way, you know? So we'll try and be very Presbyterian about it. The other thing, just to read, so let's go back to the audit thing. That's the flip side of that. And with the growth in Africa, we needed to do audits, and we've experimented with a couple of ways of doing audits at the moment. Now, one way that I've experimented with doing audits is to make sure that every paper by every student is recorded for 1 calendar year at that center, right? So if they do Alan van der Poel's course on the doctrine of the ancient church, which he took from Calhoun and did it right? If I drop into that center within that year and they did it in January and it is December, I have the right to pull that file and look at what's in it, right? And that's one of the things we began to do, and it's on my phone, unfortunately, but I've got pictures of me doing an audit in Kenya, and it was phenomenal. They had a desk about so big. I walked in, and the guy was super conscientious and super organized, and I warned him that I was going to do an audit. Everybody's file was open as I walked in, right? And he had a big binder file. Everybody's file was open. All the stuff was there. I just walked out. I selected 3 students at random. I started looking through it, and I checked, and I wanted to know the level of the I mean, are they doing, for example, the homework questions? And I checked them against the answers. I chose my courses because it was the quickest way to do it, obviously. Yeah, because I didn't have to do any extra work, right? I mean, I just go and say, oh, you did the book of Acts. And
So hard copy of everybody.
They had hard copy. Now, hang on. I'm going to talk to you about other ways of doing it. All right. I'm going to talk to you about other ways of doing it. The point was, I was incredibly surprised at the quality. Okay. And that's got a lot to do with the conscientiousness of the man who was there, which really encouraged me, right? Because I hadn't been to that center for 2 years because of COVID. He's the guy who's doing Greek. So he's the Greek guy who's been doing it. He's running that center. And he's very meticulous and conscientious. And he gets MINTS, right? He gets that we're devolving. He gets that we want the students to do this. And I was super encouraged. The 3 courses that I audited and went in and looked at what they'd done was great, okay? So that's what I threatened them with. We haven't actually ever come out with a policy statement on how to do an audit. We've actually not finalized.
We have some suggestions, some questions to ask. But
right, Norland and I have discussed this, and we have some suggestions, as you said, in that. So, but and that's one of the things, for example, I would want to put into the manuals, right? So we want this audit, but I was just, you know, because we all have this thing in the back of our mind. What are they really doing? What are they really learning, right? And I was just super encouraged when I went in there and spoke to them, and I saw that, and I thought, okay, this is getting through like we wanted to get through, and that was great. So that was a physical audit, and again, I've got pictures on my phone. I took some pictures on my phone of me actually doing that physical audit, and I took some pictures of the actual sheets of paper. But there are lots of ways of doing this. The simplest way is to digitize everything and put it into files on Dropbox, right? That's the simplest way of doing it. I don't have to leave my office at that point. I just warn them, hey, I'm doing an audit. In fact, I don't even have to warn. I don't even have to warn them if I have access. All I do is go in and I do exactly the same process through Dropbox sitting in my office, right? So we're going to work on some protocols about that, and we'll make sure everybody's copied into the loop, because everybody's suggestions are real helpful, right? Just heads up that it's something that we're doing and want to do, and I think it's going to be a great thing going forward. And that's another way of us showing excellence, right? It's another way that shows, hey, we're actually following up with the students. We are doing audits. And just to encourage you again, my big fear, look, whenever I'm doing this, my big fear is we're putting all this stuff out here. On the one hand, I've had too many conversations with people where they basically said, unless it's done by a Western missionary, it's not worth anything. And the students can't autodidact, and the Holy Spirit really doesn't exist. Okay, sorry, that's where it's going. And that is actually a serious issue. It's never stated, obviously like that, but that's an underlying issue. I have had 2 instances now where I've heard my students preach, because they'll ask me, hey, will you preach when you come out and see them? And now my answer is no, because I want to listen to you preach, right? And twice I have been very, very encouraged with the level of the students preaching. So just to encourage everybody, in my very limited times now where I'm forcing them and saying, like, I don't preach now when I go out to these places. I'll just say, no, I'm not prepared to preach, but I'm going there to listen, right? 2 instances. One instance was in Zambia with one of our students in Zambia, who's one of the coordinators with Pascal. All right. Alan probably knows the gentleman. I went to his church and he did a sermon on the book of Joshua. He said, I am preaching through every book of the Bible because they don't know. So he did a sermon on the whole of the book of Joshua, which was very well handled. And I picked up some stuff and I didn't thought about that. And then I asked him what they were doing for Bible study. He said, they're doing the same thing for Bible study because we're just trying. So he preached on Sunday morning. It was a solid sermon. Then during the week, they're doing the Bible study, doing the follow-up. And he said, that's my project for the year, making sure that everybody's solid. And it was great, and he's one of our master's students in Zambia. So just to encourage you, it's getting through, right? Stuff is getting through. And one of the ways that we can know that we know is by the audit procedures. And that's just going to take time for them to get to that level. But again, as soon as we start something, we can start enforcing it right from the get-go. If it's physical copy, they just need some sort of storage in the side of the thing, and I have the right to go in there and grab some books out of there, whichever ones I want to have a look at. And if they don't, then hey, what are you guys doing? Why are you not keeping proper records and stuff like that? But that's the way that I'm thinking. I just want to throw it out to anybody on the comments or whatever. I mean, we'll produce some documents and we're happy to take any suggestions, whoever comes up with the best stuff. Yeah.
Our assignments are all digital.
Yeah.
And does our facilitator need to keep a printed copy of everything?
Probably not then, because the way that your Psalms, your Psalm 78 works is that it actually all flows through you anyway, right?
Yeah, and it actually is all in the Moodle, right in there, the assignments, right?
In which case you're getting instant feedback about what's being done. So
yeah,
I don't see
you can have a printed file of their assignments except for their final one for the course.
Right. And so, I mean, we could talk about what that would look like if we're coming to audit one of your centers. You know what I mean? What would that practically look like? And and because you're all digitized, it's just like, hey, Carla, just, let's find 3 students and, and make it work. We can make that work. I'm more thinking of where the whole center is operating independently. Alan?
Years ago, I remember Hageman was handing out to us standards for grading. We had, I think, 4 requirements for reading reports, 5 standards for essays. Do they still exist?
I believe they do. I believe that they're in the manual, and I believe that we'll look at them again. We're looking at them again over this coming year. And if that's where we want that to be, because that's how I want the manuals to operate. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's how I want the manuals to operate. That it's written down. This is the law in the Medes and the Persians. Go through, and
Okay.
The more we can do that, the less work it is for us on the back end, right? Because basically, it's just, have you read that? And so we're working on that. and that's going to be one of our projects. We've started to get it on.
Thank you.
Yeah, we just create individual rubrics, which are kind of standards, but they fit to each assignment, so they know exactly what's expected. I don't know.
Yeah. So what Alan's bouncing into, is well, I'll give an example. I mean, when I first went to RTS, all they asked me was for a percentage of each book read. That's all. So my reading report was, did I read, the 5 books? No, I read 4 out of the 5. I got 80%. That's just, trust me, I spent many hours in the library doing this, as fast as I could, getting through a book, which was pretty useless. It was, in fact, it was totally useless.
You needed a video.
I needed a video because I could watch it 1.5 2 speed.
That information stays in this room.
Yeah, we are recording this. This is bad.
All RTS.
But no, I mean, literally, and I remember not getting the top grade in a worship course because I'd forgotten to actually read one of the documents that was behind the desk. And I got this query, why didn't you read this document? Because I put down the list. I didn't know it was behind the library desk that I had to take it out. But I would have read it quickly, and that was what I would have done. So what Alan is referring to is, going back to our earlier discussion, we'll set real guidelines, we'll teach them, and I'd like somebody to do it. So once we've set those guidelines about how to write, once we've set those guidelines about how to do a book review, I would like that video, because I wanted to do it once and done it properly. And that then we'll link it. We'll link it to whatever it is, and that can be a screen capture thing if it's done properly, right? I mean, it doesn't have, because we want them to say, look at this words, this is how I've done it. This is we do that once we finalize what we want, then somebody, and I don't want to be the person who does it, somebody then needs to make the video as well, and we'll link it to the video, and then they've got what we want in paper, what we want on video as illustrating it, and hopefully then there's no excuses, right? Okay. Any thoughts, discussions? I mean, this is just the way we're thinking at the moment. It's going to take us a while to get around to doing these things, right?
I can solve that problem of getting around to it real quickly.
Yep. Which worries me why you have one of those in the first place. Anyway. I'm just in denial. You've already accepted it. Okay, guys, that's really all I've got. Anybody else here got anything they want to throw up or discuss, or please let us know. The AEC, Norland is in charge of the manual, and a lot of the things that we are talking about will end up being in the manual. And then, as I said, the videos will flow out of the manual. In fact, I don't see why we don't have a video on the manual. I mean, why not have, no, I mean, it's another way of getting the information. This is the MINTS manual. This is how we run it.
We have a theme song.
Julian, is this a part or the time just to kind of bring up anything and everything?
Anything you want now, it's open season.
Okay, let me ask you whether it's appropriate at this point to kind of figure out or for you to talk or help me with this whole idea of Kenya stuff going on.
All right, why don't you articulate the issue for the group, and we'll.
Okay. Well, what has happened is that for 2 years now, I have been, quote unquote, in charge of about 14 students who are supposed to be doing their Project 66. I actually visited them in Kenya about 2 years ago now, and everybody was assigned their book, and ever since then, it's been nothing, absolutely nothing. I have sent several emails. I've talked to some. Then on top of that, well, I would say to say absolutely nothing is not 100% correct. I would say about 2 months ago, I received an outline, and Julian can verify this. It was 3 pages long. And he says, you know, that's got to come down to 1 page. Okay, and that's where we go. And so when I wrote the student, he kind of took those as suggestions, not as this is the way you do it. And I haven't heard from him since. So, and Julian's actually suggested, okay, let's just put this on hold for a while and see where it goes. So that's where things are. It's kind of frustrating, and that kind of a thing. That kind of summarize it basically, Julian?
Yeah, I think, you know, looking back at what happened, I think that, and again, it goes back to how we need to get certain things right from the very beginning, right? But I think that we didn't in Kenya and in places like that. There's a number of ways that I'm thinking about it. Let me just explore all of the ways. One is we didn't get things right from the very beginning. It just grew, and it grew in a very sort of organic, crazy way. And it is doing good. You know, and like I said, it's encouraging. If you speak to Abraham, he's not on the call anymore, but you know, he's seen some guys, and you know, and I really, being a cynic, I really question the guys to see whether we're getting a product that we want to be getting, right? And he has repeatedly assured me that there are guys now who are preaching solidly that either one was a bus driver, he's now got a church of 60, and he'd been through the MINTS course near where Abraham was, and there are a lot of other guys. We get a lot of guys who come out of diverse backgrounds and get funneled into better backgrounds, let's put it that way. But on this matter of the writing and the things like that, that is something we have not done well. And it catches us when we get to something like the masters, because when we get to the masters and then they try and, you know, put their thesis in, we find out that their English is not terribly good, and we find all the problems that we discussed earlier, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that is a failure, number one, on our side. So, hey, rapid expansion is great. I would rather have rapid expansion with a failure point somewhere down the line than no expansion at all. Okay. Now, obviously, what you really want is rapid expansion and no failure points, but that's what's happened with a lot of the masters. And I would also say that that's been reflected in, to some degree, the crisis that we have in Malawi, where, like I said, they suddenly, and Malawi was a problem. The other one was Cameroon. I spoke to these guys. They sent out stuff, and then I would go on the internet and find that it was a cut and paste job for 5 or 6 different websites. And I then went back to them and actually had a meeting with all of them on Zoom, explaining plagiarism, explaining theft, explaining why we don't do this, and they still did it. And I got hold of the, and I think they did it because they couldn't be bothered, and they wanted
Or they didn't know.
No, I spoke to them. Or they didn't know maybe, but I spoke to them. I said, I need this in your own words. You don't know anything, so I'm quite happy that you take it from other people, but you got a quote where you take direct quotes, where you do indirect. I need to know where you got it from. And all
I've done that too, Julian. They think you're unfair because you're requiring them to do a good job. And so they are cheating to do a good job, and it's more important that they please you and do a good job.
That's exactly what happened to, you know, when I was teaching in South Africa. You know, some of the students there, they wanted to impress me, and so I would ask for a 5,000 word essay, and they would give me 10,000, but 2/3 of it was absolute quotes from another source. And one student actually had somebody else write the stuff for them because there were two types of writing, and submitted it as her part.
Because it's a higher priority to not lose shame than it is to be. I mean, that's a whole.
Lost a lot of shame, and it's been very painful for them in Cameroon since then. You always know, don't you, when you have an introduction written by a guy and it's okay and it's African, and then he drops into the 16th century from the rest of the paper. he's picked up, you know, Matthew Henry or something like that, and all of a sudden beloved's all over the page and it's Spurgeon and whatever, right? And you know, it doesn't take much to figure that out. Catholic Study Bible is quite big in certain parts of Cameroon, I'll tell you that.
But it is a hard issue, but it's also a cultural.
I think so, and but I've taken it on board that we haven't done well. Now there are a couple of solutions to that. One is obviously we do better, and we've already discussed how we might do that, right? We've already talked about how we might do that, and we'll come up with some sort of protocols that we do. We do have to balance these with the Spanish side, and so you know, we have a little flexibility between Spanish and English, and we probably diverge more than we really should, and we probably need to pull back in a little bit. The other way of looking at it, which I think might be fair as well, is again to say, look, we're going to train a lot of guys. What do you need for ministry? I need 40 courses, and I need you to be equipped to do 40 courses, and you get a BA. That's what you need for ministry. And at that point, I'm not expecting you to necessarily go on, right? So this idea of more, higher, and better. I'm sort of. I mean, I'm thinking very much that maybe what we need to do is, and Neil and I mean, we've talked about this, to say, look, be intentional. If this guy is in ministry and is going into ministry, let's get him that BA. Let's not encourage him to do the MA. And this actually goes on to a secondary thing. I've got this practical MDiv that I want to try and develop. Okay, so don't let me leave this conversation.
Stan Arms, I just received a call from somebody in your company, and I could get to the.
Right. Who called Stan on this call? Who called him up? We could have got his social security number and all sorts of things. Man, why did I mute that? But anyway, yeah, but you know, I think that's maybe a way that we need to approach some of this, because look, I'm in the business of wanting people to be ministers and elders, and if they're all their life is studying with MINTS and they're not doing what they should be doing, I'm a little bit concerned about that, right? And it's not for everybody, right? Why should it be for everybody? We don't expect it to be. I think in the African context, it's like in Malawi, for example, they really all want to become Dr. So-and-so. They've seen it, they want it. And you know what? That's just not for everybody. It's not for everybody in the States. But there's that mentality sort of dropped in. And then you're asking, well, if you're doing all this MINTS stuff, what aren't you doing, right? Why aren't you out evangelizing? Why aren't you taking it to wherever? So, you know, that's the other solution that I'm looking at, and so, you know, and thinking seriously about. I don't know what anybody's comments on that are, but Alan, I don't know what your comments on that are, or Melvin. Alan?
What do you want me to comment on? We're talking about discipleship, aren't we?
Right.
And I remember, I forget who was the speaker. I think there was a man named Augsburger. I think it was president of some seminary, lectured at Baptist Church in North Minneapolis. And he said, I can't believe how Greek American culture and education are. And, you know, that's very much the idea of load the ideas in the brain and it will be fine. And it's really difficult to do discipleship via Zoom. The one-on-one dialogue, give and take, and listening to a sermon and then coaching, that's the kind of stuff it takes often. And I'm not saying I have a solution, I'm just observing, that's all.
Well, I appreciate that. Two things to say on that. One is I'm actually picking up individual students at various places. It's quite intentional now. I'm picking up individual students and I'm trying to work with them one-on-one. Normally they're like a national coordinator or something like that, and say, hey, let's sit down and work through. Well, I'll give you a for instance. So Pascal, who you saw earlier, Pascal approached me a while back. He said, I'm in a position where I can build basically my own church. I'm not beholden to anybody. And I want to develop this in a Presbyterian way in the Zambian context. So I first thought about sending him to one group, and then I thought about sending him to another group for practical mentoring. And then I thought, you know what, I just need to get on the thing and make an appointment with him every Thursday. And we'll use MINTS courses, because a Doctrine of the Church was the same first thing, right? I'll use MINTS courses, but we're going to use them in a very practical way, right? It's a launching pad. He's already done the courses. He's already done whatever. But, there's so much when you do a course that you don't know that's hidden behind the author's intention that you just don't know. So that's the first thing, Alan. So I think that there's room for us to do this on a very, very practical way. Grab a few of the key students that you think are going to be able to model it in their own environment, because what they don't have is context, right? We know this. They don't have context. They're coming out of something without context. The second thing, which is related to this, and then I'm going to actually ask Bob to talk about his Timothy project. The second thing, as I said, related, is that one of the things I'd like to design is a practical MDiv. So they do their MA, they're at a high enough level to do the MA, they've written their thesis, they're saying, what's next? Everybody wants to go on and do the DMin, and you say, no, that's not what we want to do. We want you to do it. We want you to do the MA, the practical part of the MA. So preaching, hatch, match, and dispatch, right? So baptisms, marriages, and funerals. Pastoral counseling, dealing with I listed all the things at one point and put them into a list and made them all down. And that would not be a knowledge base. In fact, we would give them the knowledge. So for example, if they were doing a baptism service or the Lord's Supper, right? Lord's Supper, baptism, would talk about, I would just say something from the PCA, right? Which is, a lot of it's taken from the Book of Church Order, or not from the Book of Church Order, from the Directory of Public Worship. In my case, or you could use the 3 Forms of Unity, or the older documents. That there's tons of stuff there. I know that. Cut that out, give it to them, and say, hey, listen, we're not talking about an examination of whether you know this stuff. I want to see you design that baptism service, and I want to know what you're doing in it, how you're putting in things, what you expect them to know. Have you done the pastoral counseling with the parents to know that what they're actually vowing to? What, design me something that I know that you're doing it as practically as possible. Now, the best way of doing this, of course, is you find a good local church in an area which is doing all of this stuff, and you take them to them, right? That's the best way of doing it. But the fallback for me is, hey, we've got this MDiv. I don't want them to write, I don't want them to do a class on how to do sermons. I want them to produce a sermon, to give me their notes, to talk me through how they got there, to listen to the sermon, to critique the sermon, send them back and do better at the next one, and work with them in that particular way. That's the way I was thinking about the MA program. And I started to design something, and I got caught up with stuff, and other stuff got thing. I just throw it out for your consideration. And then Bob is doing this on a very practical way with his own guys in Sierra Leone and stuff like that. But anybody want any comment on that or observations on that? And again, we're remote, so it's not easy. We can't model it, so they can't see it directly. But hey, wait a minute, if I show them what I think is good, it's going to be Western good preaching. It's not going to be African good preaching. But if I show them some leaders and we talk about those sermons and say what was good, what was bad, what was whatever,
It would probably require, I don't know if you can hear me, it would probably require going back and rethinking what a MINTS course looks like.
Well, in this particular case, it would. On the practical side,
we wouldn't have those 5 categories.
We would not have those 5, but it would.
But we'd have to have something equivalent to that,
Yeah,
which
yes,
would be,
I fully agree. And I'd be happy to do it at that level.
right.
Because this is a specialized practical program, which is not academic papers. We want, it's outcome based, right? Not front load. Anybody else on that?
I think these are excellent ideas. I think I would need to be trained by what you're thinking about.
Alan, how long were you in the pastoral ministry for? Alan, how long were you in pastoral ministry?
30 years.
Well, that's 20 years more. That's 10 years longer than I've been involved in pastoral ministry. So you trained
You
me.
can train us.
You trained me, Alan.
Maybe you were 3 times better than I was.
I wondered why I was going gray. That puts me at about 80 something. It puts me about 90 something, man. But no, I mean, this is the practical stuff. And and again, I've just been so busy, but I don't mind. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll take as far as I've got, which I think the last thing was I said something to Norland, what was that, 6 months ago, I think. I actually said something to you. Yeah, I did, which was going to be on the docket. It was going to be on the docket and it never made it into the docket.
Ah, okay.
Right.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
No, but.
No, but okay,
we'll
it
go
sounds
with it.
good. Okay. I'm saying I'll get it from Norland because I don't even know where my paperwork is. You know what I mean? It was
I can
ages
look
ago.
for it.
And I'll open up a folder somewhere which gives everybody access to it. And we can drop stuff in there. I'd love to know what you're doing, how that, you're there. So that's the difference.
No, right.
Oh, good. I wasn't sure. But Bob, you know, you've been doing this and you're doing this practically. And I don't mind opening a folder where if you've got really good stuff on baptismal services and stuff like that, that's resource material that we just leave in that folder. And the student can get in there, peruse that, they can take it, they can do whatever they like with it, because what we want is the outcome. So we'll provide materials like that. And I don't know where you're getting your materials for that sort of thing. Anyway, Bob, over to you. So,
can everyone hear me using the other microphone? We have just begun to start a new program in West Africa. The first 2-year sort of trial balloon went up, and in Senegal, Jim Weaver, who's the MTW West Africa director now, he has instituted a program he's calling the Timothy House. And the problem that it solves was this, that using MINTS courses and other courses over the years, we found that men were taking far too long to get through a full program to graduate to be ordained. And so he raised the money for a concentrated 2-year program where the men would actually live together communally. One of them was married, so he lived separately, but the idea being to live together, iron sharpens iron. These men would study together, work together, and learn together practically. So it's 3-fingered or 3-handed or 3 legs on the stool, heart, head, and hands. We want to train them theologically with the courses and the readings. We want them to be practically doing the aspects of ministry, and we want them to develop as Christians. And so using this program, we're now seeing it successfully done, and the men who were doing it in Senegal all graduated and all passed their ordination exams and were just ordained last Sunday. So now we're duplicating that in the Gambia. Burkina Faso is also starting a program. I'll be doing it in the Gambia. The difference is Jim and one Senegalese pastor, Mamadou, ran the program physically in Senegal. I'll be doing it partially present and partially from Zoom from America, but I do have a Gambian pastor who will be working with me. And so he'll be mentoring these men. We're going to select 4 or 5 men. They're going to live together communally. They'll be taking MINTS courses and other courses. But here's the difference between perhaps a traditional seminary program. Instead of taking 5 courses at once, or even 1 course and then another course, then another course, what Jim found most effective was certain things, overarching courses that need to be developed over 2 years, they continually worked at. So they started day 1 with practice preaching. And so preaching is one of the main things they need to develop. So that's happening all throughout the 2 years. As they study, say, the New Testament Gospels, they'll preach the Gospels, etc. Also going all the time is their personal spiritual development. And also going all throughout the program is a mentoring by a particular pastor in a particular church. So while they live together communally, they're going out to particular churches every weekend or during the week and practicing ministry. That all feeds back into the program. As it's very intense with 4 or 5 men, they can then say, well, here's the problem, and the whole course can be tailored to fit the particular needs of those 4 or 5 men. Now, to make that happen, of course, we needed to raise money, and we were able to do that for Senegal. I've already raised it for the full 2 years in the Gambia. Very simple, because A, costs are low, and B, it's an exciting program, and so it was easy to sell the idea. The total cost for 2 years for these 5 men to live together, to be trained by both a Gambian pastor and myself, is about $50,000 American, 2 years, so $25,000 a year. I'm serving as a volunteer. I just retired from 40 years of pastoral ministry, so I'm serving as a volunteer, so that expense doesn't exist. But it's an exciting program. We've seen it work in Senegal. The men that went through the program very quickly were the cream of the crop, and we've done the same in the Gambia. We have about 17 or 18 men in MINTS programs that we've tested, examined, prayed over, and selected probably the 5 best students to do the program. Lots more, but I'll take questions.
Would hermeneutics be one of those overarching programs?
Say it again, I missed the.
Would hermeneutics be one of those overarching?
Actually, it's a full course right off the bat. One of the first courses, covenant theology, hermeneutics are the first 2 courses.
That's exactly what I want to do in the master's.
It's still a trial. I mean, we're going to reshape it a bit as we go, but I think it's an effective program as seen in Senegal.
So what's interesting, it reminds me of what I've always aspired to and thought we would never get to. One of the best programs that I ever saw, I think it was the Free Presbyterians in Northern Ireland. I've got the denomination probably wrong. Edward Donnelly, do you know which denomination he was in?
No.
Okay, so there was a group out of Free Presbyterians out of Northern Ireland, and what they would do is if somebody, say Norland came along and said, I feel called into ministry and whatever, they wouldn't send him off. They brought him into the presbytery, and one of the guys, this guy Edward Donnelly, for example, was a Greek and New Testament guy. Bob is in the same denomination. He's Old Testament. I'm, whatever, And so what would happen is he would basically come on as an intern on a Friday. He'd be with the Greek guy, and on the Wednesday he'd be with the Old Testament guy. He'd do that. They'd have a small group intensive reading and learning. Some time would obviously be allocated to that by the denomination for both the teacher and for the group, right? And for the people who were doing it. And then they'd carry on doing the ministry at the same time. So they didn't have that bifurcation of off to seminary, get the cerebral, lose your salvation, come back and destroy the church. You know what I mean? It was all done very intentionally within the, and it's a variation on a theme that they've got going there. Maybe it's a long-term variation on a theme, you know what I mean? Because that would be the obvious way to do this, to roll it down. And that was one of the best procedures. I just couldn't think of a better way to do it. I'd love our presbyteries to do that. That's just the weird thing that we've got this thing called seminaries that, for want of better, have become a way that we take people out of pastoral ministry and out of practical ministry and dump them for 3 years into academia and then bring them back.
But to be clear, the program we're doing is shooting for a bachelor's level degree, not a master's.
That's fine. Yeah, so if do you have, without it being copious documentation, who would we hit up for a summary and an expansion of that? If we were, because look, that's what I want to see happening, throughout Africa. We get a couple of guys who maybe do this, and then we bring them in, and once you get the first and second generation cultivated, boom, right. It goes. And we could use MINTS, or we could use whatever for the academic content, and then that culture, that practical thing, it's running, it's going.
Jim Weaver's the
Jim-
initiator of this.
Okay.
MTW.
Any thoughts, anybody, just as a matter of interest?
I'd love to hear, because you had some students just be ordained this past Sunday, right? I'd love to hear 6 months from now how they're
Yes.
doing.
Yeah.
Me
No,
too. Me too.
that'd be great. That'd be great.
Several of them in Senegal have been actually trained specifically to plant new churches, as opposed to taking over an existing congregation. In the Gambia, we need pastors at existing congregations, so we'll probably not have that same planting training. But,
I think one of the things that I thought about when I started to do this and I started to cast around was, where could I get volunteers who were good preachers, who were maybe retired? Because, you know, everybody wants to do MINTS until they find out they got to write papers, and then nobody wants to do MINTS because it's a heck of a lot of work, right? Let's be honest about it, right? So, oh yeah, I'm a retired minister, I'll help out. Oh, you mean I have to write stuff and I have to do stuff and it's hard work? Oh, no, maybe not. But this would be more practical, right? This would be a guy who says, I'm prepared to listen to 3 sermons and look at the guy's preparation and talk him through it and try to improve it. And that's one course, right? And so it would be more time intensive than labor intensive in producing documentation, right? And I just throw it out there, because I mean, that's the thing, you know, I got to that point thinking through, I got a couple of guys that I'd love to trial it with and say, are you prepared to just trial this? And this is the bigger vision. And would you give a certain amount of your time? Because I think it would be easier to get volunteers for that than it is to say, hey, do you want to write a MINTS course and then do this and go on to the next? Melvin, thoughts? How are you going to do it? How are you going to do it out in Port Moresby?
I'd like to see 2 things. First, the list of categories that you would imagine this training would take, and then an example of 1 or 2 quote courses in one of those categories.
Sure.
In other words, just to give an idea of how
Yeah.
you imagine it getting fleshed out.
I'll send you inchoate documents that, as far as I got to, all I did was started to look at categories. But you know, there'd have to be fairly wide discretion. I mean, I think all you do with the preaching, I mean, I'd be interested to hear what they do practically, but all I do with the preaching is, okay, I want to see your prep. So before you preach the sermon on Sunday, I want to see your prep, and I'll work with you on the prep. So maybe you have to think 2 or 3 weeks in advance, which for most actually in Africa is the first step in the process, right? Because they're probably doing something immediately and going on to the next thing immediately. So this whole idea of, and one of the things I was thinking was, if they were an MA student and they've already done their project 66, well, that's the exegetical work. You know what I mean? That's done. So I want you to preach based on your book of Ephesians, right? And then I want you to lay out a 6 weeks course on Ephesians 4, because we're trying to hammer that sort of thing into people, right? We're hammering that in. And then I want to see what you've done, and then I'll feed back with you. And so, yeah, I don't mind having a go at that, Alan, and just trying to think it through. And then I want to see your prep. I want to hear the sermon. And then together we want to sit down and ask the basic questions of, were you faithful to the text? Were you on point? Did you have good application? Neil was just, I forget now, unfortunately, I can't remember what he said because it was brilliant. I can't remember what he said. But Neil was here on Sunday. He heard great preaching at this church on Sunday morning. And then he went to it was the priesthood of all believers. And then he went to the Spanish church who was here. And the guy was dealing with the priesthood of all believers. And he was talking about, yeah, we have leaders. Yes, we have so-and-so. But you are all priests and you are all intercessors for the world. And you are all, and he was building that out like that. And Neil said it was great application. It was just phenomenally done. And that's the sort of thing that we'd be wanting to see that's on point. And you do it the first time and you say, all right, what do we need? 3 sermons to critique like that? And that's one course, you know, and then we have categories about, you know, how well it was done and things like that. Again, it was something on my to-do list and it's fallen off the to-do list, that's the sort of way I'm thinking, Alan.
I like it. I think that'd be really valuable to develop.
We'd have to do a couple of things if we did. So we'd have to come up with a more. I'll try and dig around, Alan, and send you a copy of as far as I got. I don't mind sending a copy to anybody as far as I got. It wasn't very far. And then we'd have to go to the AEC and say, look, this is a practical course. We're not going to use the 5 requirements because this is completely different. But we think it has value, we think it has merit, and we'd like to do it. And then we would, and then we'd have to try and see whether we could recruit mentors, you know, to test drive it. We know each one of us could try and test drive it, but find a guy who's retired. He doesn't have to pick up the whole thing. I mean, he could just pick up the preaching part, or he just pick up you know. And again, you know, the trouble with the mentors is going to be, how do you in Africa write a premarital course when you're dealing with how many sheep and goats the girl's worth? You know, it's another world, man. And you know what? It's a world that makes sense. I spent an afternoon in Kenya one day, sitting on a thing, listening. It's a world that makes perfect sense when you don't have Social Security. It is absolutely logical, because if I'm giving you my daughter, I am giving you an economic unit, which is to look after me in my, thank you, which is going to, you know, is going to look after me in my old age. And I need some sort of way to look, because it's my Social Security. My child is my Social Security, right? So, you know, but you need a lot of wisdom in some of these guys who are prepared to come and mentor. They would have to learn a lot at the same time.
Could
Great.
you put these wires in my office when you're done with it? Can we get it? Probably. Right now you can.
You're off?
Yeah.
If you can't put those in the office, what do we do with them?
Ask Doug to put them in.
Yeah, find out.
Or Dina, they'll just hang around there for me.
Okay.
So
All right.
that-
Doug or Dana from there. Okay.
The cameras are in.
So what do we need? Is that your box there? Is that
Yeah.
behind you?
I'm
All
gonna
right.
take whatever you're not using.
Okay. Cool.
That should work. You're gonna be in the bookstore tomorrow morning.
The bookstore.
We have
Interesting.
one we haven't been in yet.
Right.
It's a good room. Nice.
Great. Works for
Not
us.
quite this nice,
All
but
the
nice.
leftover boxes of food and everything's all in there already.
Thank you.
I put that in Neil's.
Why
notes.
don't you say goodbye to everybody from the English side and explain what's happening? And
Hello, English people. Good to see you. I don't have a lot of explanation other than to say hi and glad you came to the meeting. We look forward to doing great things together. And I look to enjoy helping whatever you need, in whatever way I can do it.
did you send me the link? Oh, no, I'm going to send that out. I'm going
Yeah,
to send that out 7 to 7:30 for the trustees meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
I'll
think
send
I
that out.
copied you on something that
Had
George
everything.
Lawrence sent, and you just copy it back to everybody with a link on.
And
In
that's
fact,
what
I think I did that.
you probably did, and I've forgotten after lunch. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Greg. Thanks,
See ya.
Carl. Hey, blessings.
You guys,
I'm callable if you need me.
I see that until 10 p.m., right?
Yeah, then I'm off to the airport.
yeah.
Cheers. It'll cross-cultural cheers there. Okay.
Nothing tomorrow, right?
Well, we have a plenary session where we are feeding back what we've talked about into the Spanish side, and the Spanish side are going to feed back what we've talked about into them. So it's come if you like and have discussion. It's going to be a very short thing, a couple of hours maximum. I think it was from 9 o'clock, so 9 to 11 Eastern time. And I've got to generate the link. If I haven't done it already, I'll generate the link and find out, send it to Greg's other email addresses, which are circulating around. Anything else, guys? Anything else which is floating around in your minds so Carla, sorry, Alan was going to say something.
Could your ideas ever be incorporated on a bachelor's level?
Quite possibly, but we would, we'd have to, yeah, the answer is quite possibly. We'd just have to figure out a way that the grading system would be applied to those things. And in fact, Alan, you're quite right. If we're going to say that some people are going to go as far as a bachelor's and then we want to, kick them out of the nest because we want them doing the job rather than staying in the nest, you're right. It should be.
Could we go back to the old bachelor divinity model?
There you go.
Well, the only reason why we do masters here rather than bachelor's is because we followed the American model and everybody had a bachelor's. So you don't want another bachelor's, so I want a master's. That's history, right? I mean, that's the reality of the situation. Yeah, okay, Alan. I mean, that's an interesting thought. And in theory, I would be okay with it for the practical courses if we can figure out a way to do the practical courses and grade them. On the one hand, we're always looking for uniformity because if things spin out of control, they're going to go in a million and one directions, and we know that. On the other side of it, look, we know that the languages are difficult, right? I mean, the languages, they're suggerous and our normal grading, mechanisms don't really work with them. So we might be able to. We'll think about it. But that's fair enough. I was only putting it into the MDiv to start with, but nothing stopping us doing the other way. Except for we'll need a lot more human resources, which we don't require at the moment for the bachelor's thing. Sorry, Melvin. So I just threw something out at you for fun and said, how are we going to do it in Port Moresby? Is it going to
Yeah, I was going to say what you're talking about, that working with the pastors, critiquing sermons. The Bible college that I work with there in Port Moresby, they do something very similar to that the student is at the Bible college, doing the academic work, they're doing some practical things too, but when their time at the Bible college is done, then they have 1 year to 2 years of essentially working in the church, somewhat pastoring the church, but one of the missionaries, and it's also a retired pastor who's out there, they're constantly working with that man, doing just what you said, looking at his sermon, how did you put this sermon together, listening to him preach and giving him critique, advice on how he can improve things. So yeah, it's a good idea of what you were talking about there. Good training for these pastors.
Well, in that case, I would actually completely reverse it in your case. Will at MINTS do the academic stuff and you let them do the practical stuff. If they're doing
let
them do, you know what I'm saying? I'd actually probably go 180 degrees in your particular case. If you've got people who are doing that in situ, so much the better. They can do it probably better than we can do it remotely, right?
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's part of what I work with at the Bible college is trying to get them to incorporate some MINTS courses in their curriculum. And because they're still wanting to work toward having Papua New Guineans become the teachers at that Bible college. And they see the avenue toward getting to that goal is in working with MINTS. So yeah, I continue to work together with them and trying to develop Christ Church out there in PNG.
Right. We've been looking down John Donald or Donald John and Alfred. Are you guys you're still on? So we'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your thoughts.
On our first. Well, Elder, I would like to give you the opportunity to go first, and then I will stand as the second person. So go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it's been a long day, and definitely I've been learning from all of you there. We are just getting started at Freetown in Sierra Leone. And all I hear at the moment seems to be a little bit new to us. But what fundamentally I would want to advise also, especially many of us who would be getting into the MINTS courses, are actually coming from backgrounds that are not well grounded yet educationally, except a few of us probably who have been to university or college, where a greater number of our candidates here may not have had even the high school certificate. So it means if we are talking about actually structuring something out for the good of the church, we may have to start at the very basic foundational. What we do here some years ago when we had this breakdown during the war, and there were some difficulties, challenges getting into the university, we had certain courses offered. They call them access course. That means you don't have the right requirement to enter into a university. There are certain other courses that are meant to prepare you over a period of time so that you are able to actually grapple with university education. Here also, we might be looking at some of these introduction, remedial courses. Again, also, the use of technology can be a problem for many of us. Well, you would see we might have a greater use of technology, getting our assignment done. So if we can structure some of the subjects to look at technology, wherein a simple application of them, how we can use it in our course study, it will be beneficial. So you look at all these areas, have other people who can help us to know how to manage the use of technology, which apparently is becoming the vogue, is becoming the norm for actually transporting your ideas across. And if that should be the case, it means some, not necessarily, I'm not looking at all of theological causes, but you need to know even transporting the ideas need more than technology. Can you engage other facilitators, lecturers who might be able to handle these areas to prepare your student well so that they are able to function at the end of the day? Also, we were blessed some time ago last year when we have Dr. Rankine Williams, I think that's the name if I've not forgotten. He taught us ethics. We had ethics class for nearly a week. And when you mention things like plagiarization, it's something common everywhere at the top level, wherever, all across the world. So if we start something like ethics right from the beginning, people understand what they are up to, because it's not just about the mental knowledge, the qualification behind your back. It's also preparing people for eternity. So at the end of the day, people should be able to understand what they are subscribing to. And if that is ingrained in them, what we see here many a time is much more of the mental aptitude. How can I pass? How can I be at that grade? But beyond the mental aptitude is also preparing people, like I said, for eternity. So you, the one being prepared, must be prepared very well. So some of these things have to be put in balance. We have to go back, especially in a place like Africa. All of us know we are far behind in the educational strata worldwide. So therefore, a real study and analysis should be made of our situation in Africa, our environment, how things do work. It's easier to just transport some of these ideas across the world. But like I said, you need to understand the culture where these things are being transported to. You need to know how the educational system are being conducted. Many of our educational systems are broken down as a result of the war and as a result of many other factors, poverty. And all you can see, people may just want to have the paper qualification to promote them to other means of useful living, livelihood. So we are beyond just gaining paper, livelihoods, essence. We are also looking at making real men who could also transform society, who could prepare society and people for the eventual coming of Christ. This is what we actually look at. Somebody mentioned also, many a time when we spend most of the time pursuing mental knowledge, education, and all the rest of it, little attention is being made to evangelism. It's quite true, but then I look at it in a balance. Just like I'm an engineer, actually, I know what it means. You have certain times, you have those people who develop the theories. They are in the classroom, they are in the laboratory. And you have those who actually use those practices to make sure they achieve from the theory what is useful for life. So those of us who will be in the academia and those who will be in the front line and the field should have like a seamless operation. So we can spend most of our time not really evangelizing, but really developing materials to help those who might be at the front line. So our situation might be shared with those people. Some may not be adequate enough to be up in the classroom all the time. So we need to also look at that balance so that the church doesn't suffer for want of good men, because many of the good men will be pursuing education. And many of those who might not be that too good would rather have it in the field. And if they are not well prepared, and no matter how you look at it, they might not be prepared enough mentally. Even in our situation, I was chatting with Donald. I said that might be tough for some of our candidates. Some have not yet, but they are eager to learn. And how can we feed them? How can we have something structured for them so they also appear to be contributing to kingdom building, not just to mentor building?
Appreciate it, Alfred. I think you talked about access courses. So what we tend to do is we have a certificate program, which is basically our access courses, right? You know, if you go and have a look at our catalog and the courses that we've got, I'm just speaking to one part. It's a fairly big and comprehensive system. Is it as good as we want it to be? No. Is it getting better? I hope so. You know, day by day, hour by hour. We only started in Africa 10 years ago. So it's encouraging to see where it is, but we're always looking for ways to push it. We know what we can do with MINTS, and then we know what our weaknesses are, and that's part of what we were discussing. But to start with, just with the access courses, our certificate acts as an access course base. If somebody doesn't have a degree or they don't even have a school leaving certificate, they can begin with a certificate, and then we can work with them all the way through to the bachelor's degree. And then, as you've heard from the discussion, there's master's programs which are re-geared with a higher level of knowledge, and then even up to a doctor of ministry level program. Your point about practical knowledge is well taken, and that's really where we were today. We know what we can do. If we're in a situation and where we've got good guys, they're no longer on here, but Abraham Kogo was on earlier, Isaac was on. I have sat down with Isaac when Isaac has been doing pastoral counseling and just been floored by his pastoral counseling gifts. Just amazing practical pastoral counseling gifts. And so they become the mentors in the local centers. But what we're wrestling with here is, what about us here? Is there more that we can do to be more practical? So, you know, those are some of the things. And I for the academic side of things, I really would encourage you to get a grip on go to the mints.edu website, download the documents on the website, have a good look at them. And you know, Bob's with you, he can help you work through what you think you need, what you don't need, and we'll be more than happy to work with you. You know, God has blessed us in Africa amazingly. I mean, we're probably running at 1,100 students up and down Africa at the moment. And we trust that, like I said, our mentors become the guys who are the national coordinators or things like that, and they then mentor the students who are coming after them. But thank you, Alfred, I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Julian. And I also want to thank Alfred for his contribution. And I want to toe the line. I'm just right behind him in supporting what he said with regards to some of the challenges that we have in Africa. But also, even as you were saying that the practical aspect is also very, very good, because let's take an example. If someone wants to do a certificate program, and looking at the certificate program, maybe you have to go through about 6 modules in completing the certificate program. It is possible that it may be very difficult for someone to go through that, So as you were saying that maybe you'll have to design a tailor-made program that will guide some people, to go through those programs and then maybe qualify to become a pastor or ordain that person. For me, I want to look at the practical aspects, because there are times you have people that will go through certain programs, whether it's a certificate, diploma, or degree program. And then after that academic struggle, the person comes out without knowing what to do. For instance, maybe the person would not even know how to preach, how to lead a church, but even as you also made mention about discipleship, I want to believe those are the key for us in Sierra Leone. We need people like mentors, people that will mentor young people here in Sierra Leone, so that when they come through or go through those programs, they will come out and be somebody that will lead a congregation. We've had some young people, even like Pastor Lulu, he's been there for over 10 years without someone discipling him, or trying to coach him, for what to do, as a church leader, so that's some of our challenges. But we believe with MINTS, and we believe with maybe WORM and MTW, they are guardians. There will be something that you'll be able to come out with regards to these aspects. So I want to look at that practical aspect and also the discipleship program, so that some of us that is aspiring to go through this MINT program will be able to do it. And then at the end of the course, we'll know what we have to do as a pastor.
Just to follow up, thank you, brother. Just to follow up, so there are things that we can do and things that we can't do, and we recognize that. The things that we can do, we've got an academic program, it's getting stronger and stronger. We can help you design that, 10 courses or a certificate, and I know Bob's already working with you like that. So there's plenty of stuff, yeah, to some degree, yeah.
Very little degree.
Okay, well, okay. I mean, and we'll follow up with Bob, and we'll follow up with you to be able to get you to do that. Again, go to the mints.edu website and have a look. So that side of it we can do. The other side of it, which is the practical side, has to be done locally. We can't do that remotely. We can't be everywhere. We can't do that remotely. So then that thing gets thrust onto somebody like yourself and Alfred, right? Where both of you are involved in that process. This has been a strange meeting for you, because most of the African guys have not been on the meeting and on the call because of the time differences. But every quarter, and we'll include you on that mailing list, every quarter, we have every quarter we try and have an African meeting where we're discussing what's going on in the MINTS system. And we're happy to include that, and that hopefully would be better time. You get to hear, I mean, this is a bunch of white people talking about it. So you'd actually get to hear a lot of the Africans, which we deal with one-on-one, the country coordinators giving their sort of their contribution and making contributions and trying to work towards some. So, I would encourage you to do that, and I will put you down next meeting for the next time that we have, maybe in end of February, beginning of March. We'll have another Africa regional meeting, and we'll encourage you, we'll put you onto that regional meeting. And that is purely for Africans dealing with mints in Africa. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure. We'd love to help and do what we can. I'm tired. Anybody else? All right, there is a trustees meeting tonight at 7. If you'd like to come, you're welcome. Again, by Zoom. I can't even remember whether I've sent the link or haven't. I felt I did. I'm going to go back and look at all my emails. I'm so tired, I can't remember. If not, I will set up a link again and send it out. And hopefully we catch everybody on the distribution lists, right? And then tomorrow morning, there's going to be 2 hours worth tomorrow morning, if you'd like to come, which is between 9 and 11. In fact, I might even have to bug out before 11, so it might be 9 till 10 or something ridiculous. I don't know. I have to check my flight time. I think I'm at 2 o'clock and I've got to get there and other things. And so I have to figure out, yeah, I should be all right, 9 to 11. And that's just a feedback. So the English side are going to give our feedback about what we covered, and the Spanish side are going to give their feedback about what we covered. Videos are online, as you well know, and you know, we're all snowed under with work, and yet, and I hope we don't drop things, right? So we'll try not to drop, because everybody's snowed under with projects. I've got 3 half-written courses. I've got a Christology course that's half-written, a Pentateuch course that's half-written, and I'm revising a course on practical eldership. So, or doing one on practical eldership. So they're all half-written courses, and we're all behind. So anyway, God willing, we won't drop everything. And thank you very much, everybody, for the English side. Once this is finished, somebody will send out a questionnaire. And if there are things that we were egregious in leaving out, please inform us, very gently, of course. And if there are things that you think, we can do better next time and all that, we'll send out a questionnaire, and please do fill that in. With COVID and things like that, I really hope next year that we can get everybody either down here, or we'll go to a different location, right? It'll be a completely different location, but I'd love to do more of that, getting everybody in one place. God willing, COVID will be done by this time next year, or it'll be endemic rather than pandemic. And so we just move through it and carry on going. Anybody, last thoughts for anybody?
Thanks.
I thought you led us in some meaningful meetings. Thank you.
If they're actionable, then we might get somewhere, but if we can act on them, I'm just tired right now.
Thank you, Julian, for your work. We appreciate your love for the church, your love of teaching, and just love of the people.
And Stan, book a meeting. Thank you, Stan. And book a meeting between you and I, and we'll catch up with the Addis. I do want to talk about maybe raising a little bit of extra funds, if possible, to do the second person review of the courses that we've done. Because I do have a couple of people who are capable of doing the follow-up reviews. And so you and I can chat about that later, all right? So
that's fine. Yeah.
Chase me up by sending me an email, and maybe I'll be in a fit state to do something with you next time. All right, not right now, because I'm done now.
Well, I'll tell you what, for me, it's absolutely so exciting to be able to see the possibility of Reform Seminary happening in Ethiopia. Wow,
I am too.
Man, I tell you what.
And the most encouraging thing for me was, after having some discouraging meetings about what we hope to achieve in Addis Ababa, to have a guy walk in who was an OP translator who's translated Berkhoff, and walk into the very church that I'm in on Sunday morning. I mean, providentially, I don't know, it could still go bad, but providentially, that's quite an encouragement, right? So, that, and those are the guys that then can take the materials that we've moved into Amharic and change them. They have had money for video equipment. I have sent them money for video equipment. So audio visual should not be a problem.
Wow.
And so all we need to, and God willing, like I said, I don't know, you might even be interested in coming out. I'm thinking about a trip out there in March. Okay.
Okie doke. Talk to you later.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, Carla. Thanks, Doug. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Alfred. Appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll see more of you. And welcome. I'm glad you could come to MINTS. It's a funny organization, but for some reason God has blessed it. So we're thankful for that. Sometimes God blesses it when we try, not necessarily when we're very good at what we do. So we're thankful for that.
He blesses in spite of us.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Blessings to you all. Huh?
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Candace. We'll see you when we see you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye, brothers.